Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Answering the Call. We continue to explore what makes people go from their ordinary world into their extraordinary world. And part of that is about hearing a call to action or a call to adventure and answering that call and how you had the courage to answer that, and when you answered that, what your journey was like. So today I'm with Jacquelynne Maloney. She is a gifted healer, an intuitive, a guide. I met her through the Modern Mystery School, as I've met so many wonderful people, and have come to learn that she is a rather amazing goddess and human, with many talents and many things to share. So, Jackie, introduce yourself. Tell anybody who's watching, who are you? What do you do?
So that's a big answer. So I'm Jacquelynne. I have a physical practice in Hingham, Massachusetts. I was born and raised in this area, Quincy, Dorchester area. And it wasn't always this way. Yeah, so I have a healing practice. I kind of have like two arms of my business, if you will, and then like a tail, because I've got something else. So I've got like my healing practice that I do, which is all like the in-person work. And then I have the 9-star key consulting work, which just like mind-blowing and amazing. And then I've got my L.U.X Apothecary, which is just like the fun stuff I make while the baby's sleeping, because why not? When you have a toddler, why not give yourself more stuff to do? So
Jackie is a super mom, by the way.
Thank you. Please call me
super
Jack.
mom, beautiful little boy named Leo.
Thank you. Yeah, call me Jack, please.
Jack.
Yes, Jack is cool. Yeah, he is 22 months old and awesome baby, but like still exhausting, still the hardest thing in the world.
Right.
So he keeps me very busy, and yeah, I can't complain. Life is good.
Yeah. Okay. So, Jack, I want to hear about 9-star key, but I want to wait on that for a second because I want to know, you said to me earlier when we were talking about that you were in like a corporate world, which there's nothing wrong with that. Many people are in a corporate world, but that you left that world to do something different. And so what was it like? What were you doing at that time? Like what did that corporate world look like for you?
So when I didn't like do the traditional go to college thing. I thought it was a waste of money unless you wanted to be like a surgeon or something. So at the ripe young age of 20, I fell into a job in the insurance industry. And like there's a joke that you either fall into the insurance industry or like you were born into it. It's all family or you just happen into it by choice. Nobody like wants to go into insurance. And I was really good at it. And I very quickly excelled into a sales position. So I, in just a couple of years, went from being like admin account manager to a salesperson and did rather well for myself. And I sold construction insurance. So I was in this like male dominated industry. So I'm wearing forage heels all the time. I'm like 5'2". So I'm in heels and power suits and trying to like make my place in the world. And it was a very lucrative position. I couldn't complain. The work wasn't super hard. It was all about relationships. It was great. But I always knew that like, I don't know, maybe some people wake up and like insurance is their dream. It's not me. It's not mine. And, but like for a while, when you're making good money, it's whatever. You're like, nope, this is just a means to an end. I can, buy the car and the house and I can do all these things. And then I had the car, I got the house. I bought my first house at like 26.
Wow.
And then I realized I had built myself a prison. I didn't like my work. I didn't, I liked my customers. I didn't like the work. It's insurance. It's extremely stressful. And I was just in this place of like, oh my God, what do I do? And I wanted to like run away to an ashram. Like I wanted to go, to India and meditate with the monks. But at the time I had 2 bulldogs, so I couldn't do that. So I was like, all right, well, it looks like I just got to kind of buckle down and figure this shit out. And I call myself a recovering type A personality. And at the time, I was reading a lot of like sales books and trying to like get things done. And I was all very rah, rah, rah. And, and then at the, like the 26, 27 year age, it was like, okay, well, maybe if I read like self-help books, I'll just be a better person and be a better salesperson by default. So that's like the track I started going down. And I'd been doing yoga since I was 18, but it was always just a physical practice that didn't have anything to do with like the actual spiritual side of yoga, which finally started to kick in at around the same time. So very quickly, I found myself like really immersed in self-development and professional development work. And I just thought all of that was amazing. And I fell into yoga teacher training and loved that. Very challenging, but loved that. And while I was in yoga, this is all gonna make sense, I promise. So while I was in yoga teacher training, at the time, like the only thing that I consumed more than like self-help books and personal development books was wine. So, you know, it was like martini lunches and, you know, going out with clients, and it just, that's what you do. You drink, right? And I was in my 20s, of course. So I didn't drink during yoga teacher training. I was like at this part of my life where I was trying to do the vegan thing, although terribly wrong at that time. Trying to do that, trying to like be really good to my body. And when you're doing yoga 4 hours a day, the last thing you want to do is put something in your body that's going to make that harder. So I cut the wine out for a while. And one day at yoga, the guy's like, you know what, tomorrow's going to be an easy day. Go home, take a bath, have a glass of wine. And I was like, okay. So I went home and had a glass of wine, and I had Prosecco. And all of a sudden I felt really hot. And I like went to the bathroom, and my whole face was like covered in hives. My chest was covered in hives. All of a sudden I had this massive allergic reaction to alcohol. And being the stubborn person that I am, I tried different types of alcohol over the next 2 weeks, trying to prove that maybe it was something with that bottle, and it was, no, this was like a divine intervention. You can't drink, you need to figure out your life, right? So when you're used to drinking every day at 27 years old, suddenly you have an awful lot of emotions to contend with. And so I started like trying tapping, you know, tapping like the thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't working. So I like hired a professional, and I was like, this isn't working for me. What do I do? And she's like, you know, I really think you need to do Reiki. And I'm like, oh. You know, I had no interest. I thought energy work was complete BS. Didn't want anything to do with it. And because I trusted her, after several months of her pestering me, I went to a Reiki class. One of my cousins had a center on the South Shore at the time. I went and I took a Reiki class with her. My entire world blew up, and suddenly everything I thought about the world was wrong. So I like had this huge like, oh my God, like what am I doing? And quickly ran down the rabbit hole, finding, you know, and learning as many things as I could. And I stumbled across the Modern Mystery School about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months after that, like huge, I called it like my red pill moment, you know, like the world is never the same.
Yes. Yes. I'm loving, I have to say, your story is blowing me away, Jack, because it's so reflective of my own that I'm like, I have like a little bit of goosebumpies. Like I started with yoga teacher training, and then there was like a Reiki training, and I was like, okay, like sure. And that sort of started all the things. And the same thing happened. It's funny that you say, like, I call it kind of like taking the red pill as well. And it took me a little longer to find the Modern Mystery School, about 5 years, but there is that rabbit hole moment, right? Where you're like, I want to learn all the things, like everything. Like, oh my goodness, there's so much to know. But then you're like, how do I know all the things? It just becomes crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
It was wild. I mean, before I met Jordan and the Modern Mystery School, I had taken Reiki 1, 2, and 3. I'd studied IET. I was learning the Jaffe Velour technique. I was learning all of this stuff. And I was working with a mind-body healer in Needham at the same time. So I was like totally immersed in all this stuff and like couldn't get enough of it. And yeah, and then I found Jordan, and you know, whatever happened during that life activation session. So I went from, it's absolute insanity, but I met Jordan and had my life activation session, and within 19 days was in Toronto at my first Healers Academy. Like, wow. I met him, and I had everything that he said was like, oh my God, this is hitting me on a soul level. I need to do whatever this man is talking about. He could have been speaking Russian for all I cared. And it was the energy behind it, right?
Totally. So, yes. And for those of you who don't know, just when you're watching. Jordan, we're talking about Jordan Bain. He is the owner of HealingBoston.com, which is a part of the Modern Mystery School. There's a physical brick and mortar location in Waltham, Massachusetts as well. Waltham now, right?
Yeah, it's Waltham. He's the area leader for, he runs MMS Boston. He's like area leadership. So he's like,
yes, he does all the things
in the area.
He does all the things. And also, just so you know too, the reason I was blown away by the 19 days is because I did, like at Life Activation, it's like there's two of them, and then there's an Empower Thyself class that you have to do that some people take a couple of years doing just that.
I know.
Before they even go to Healers Academy. So it's amazing. Like it's incredible. Or like someone like me, like I haven't done Healers Academy. I did Kabbalah first. And like 19 days, that's crazy. That's amazing.
It was insane. It's just, it all lined up. I had disposable income, and it was like, there was all these classes, and he was teaching them all because this thing in Toronto was happening. So it was all set up. All I needed to do was just jump on the train and go. So, when I got back from Healers Academy, that voice that had always been like, this is, this really isn't your calling, but the money's really good. Like, I couldn't ignore, like, you can't do this anymore. You can't do this anymore. You can't do this anymore. This doesn't mean anything. And I wasn't ready to go like whole hog healer because like it was brand new to me. And it was such a like stark contrast from the life I had been living.
Were you still doing insurance at the time?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, like, I went to Healers Academy, and within 7 months, I decided to leave that job and enroll in acupuncture school, traditional Chinese medicine in Sarasota. So I emptied my house and moved to Sarasota because it was like, well, acupuncture is like well respected and a lot more people are like getting on board with it. So it made sense to me from like a move, that was a lot more respectable and responsible, I guess. And then I got there and I love Chinese medicine. And Nine Sharky is a part of Chinese medicine. And I love the herbal side of things, but you can't be an herbalist without acupuncture. Like they don't separate the degrees that way. So it was just, I stayed for a little over a year. I did like 3 or 4 semesters and I loved it and I really excelled at it. But I was like, this is an expensive hobby. I'm not going to use this. But it was really the culmination of all that energy work and having those keys opened up between the Life Activation, with the Empower Thyself, with the Healers Academy. It was just like, I could no longer put myself inside this tiny box that everybody was expecting me to be in. And, you just, as more time went on, this was in the end of 2013. So it's been a while. But, eventually you let yourself kind of come out of I remember I did a Facebook post on it about 7 years ago, like coming out of the woo-woo closet, because I thought it was weird and I thought it was all bull until I experienced it. And I was like, oh, that's what all this stuff means, So it was, that's in a nutshell is like a synopsis of the past 10 years of my life.
Well, I want to reflect back a couple of really interesting things you said. You said you had built yourself a prison and, you had built a life that you thought was what you were supposed to build in a life, right? So you had gotten the car, you had the job, you had the suits and the heels and the power that comes with those jobs. And then you had it, and then you said you built yourself into a prison. So, at that point, you said you fell into yoga teacher training. How did that happen? What was the thing that, how did you go into that?
It was one of those things that I just felt like I needed to do. I remember being in yoga teacher training and thinking like, I don't want to teach yoga. Like I loved it. It was, it was something that I did several times a week. It was one of my absolute favorite activities. And I knew that there was something to it that people needed, and for me, like I'm not the type of person that can just like sit down and go into meditation. Like I have to be physically exhausted in order to be able to like sit down and really have any type of meaningful, not fidgeting thing. So I felt like yoga was really helpful with that. It was like accessible. And it was a train. I just knew I had to be there. I don't even remember what the catalyst was. It
Right.
was just like, it seemed like the next right step. It
You
seemed
took
like the
so
next.
many, and you took so many leaps of faith. I'm listening to your story, and
Crazy,
you
yeah.
know, another thing about Healers Academy that's really interesting is that it's not just life activation or whatever. It's like multiple classes as well. So you were just like, I'm all in, which
Yeah.
is so cool. And you were like, Reiki sounds a little bit like BS, but you know what? Like, I'm just gonna try it. And it's like you did all of these things even when you were not sure, because it sounds to me, and I could be wrong, like it sounds like you go with your gut. Is that accurate? Like, yeah.
Absolutely. And my gut has gotten me into some pretty precarious situations, I will say that. You know, it's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows, but for the most part, like I will get these deep, deep urges and I just have to run with it. And I didn't know where those came from. You know, it was just like, I need to do this. Like I'll feel an urgency that I can't explain. I can't stop thinking about something. Like I've made, that's been especially over the past 10 years, that has been a pattern, is that all of a sudden something will just become very, very clear. And it's like, I need to take action on it. Yeah.
And you've gone even further in the mystery school, right? I mean, you've gone pretty far now. How many Kabbalah's trees have you done? Because I did my first one with you, but I know that was not your first one.
That was not my first one. That was my fifth Kabbalah
Wow.
tree.
It is a rather addicting thing, isn't it?
Well, you know, you don't realize, and maybe you're starting to see this, the world
Mm.
moves a lot slower when you're not in the tree. Like there's not
It's,
this constant energy behind everything. And, you know, I've been out of the tree for a little over a month and I'm like, man,
yeah,
you know, it's just, it feels like it's not
it's,
harder to manifest things, but you don't have the same, traction as you do
yeah,
once you're in the tree. And I
it's,
think
it's
the fraternity
interesting.
speaks a lot to that too. You know, when you
I
have that
think,
many people that are all going through it.
yeah, I think even when I finished with you like a month ago, and I was like, okay, like cool. Like that was cool. I liked it. I'd probably do it again. And then over the last month or so, I've been like, I want to do it again right now.
Yeah,
It's pretty awesome.
it's amazing.
And yeah, yeah. And so you've gone on to basically do all of these things. You're like my goals, just so you know. I'm like seeing all these amazing things you do, in the mystery school and all of these really cool like ritual master and the path that I'm like hoping to take one day as well. But you've also done these other things. Well, you've become a mom, which is just amazing in itself. And then you do this other thing that's not necessarily mystery school. And I really want to hear about it because it's so interesting. I want to hear about this 9-star key. So talk about that. Tell me.
Oh, absolutely. So one thing that has remained constant throughout this entire journey and how my mind works is I've always been obsessed with people and how they tick and how their minds work. And you know, when I first started getting into like the self-development stuff, I was really into the Myers-Briggs typing. I liked the Enneagram. I studied the Enneagram pretty hard for a couple of years because it was part of this other thing that I was doing. And whenever there was any type of way to understand people and like specifically their differences and like how does their brain work different from mine and why, because I always felt like I was either having trouble communicating or that like I would think about the world one way and then somebody else would do something different, and I knew that there was something behind that and I couldn't put my finger on it. And once again, the 9-star key is something that I totally fell into. So I happened to start learning it like I think the month that I entered the acupuncture training. So I was getting like all of the, you know, they give you all the theory in traditional Chinese medicine school, which is what I was doing. So you're getting like all the theory behind the organs and the 5 elements and how they work and how that shows up in your body. And then the 9-star key, it's all based in the same exact stuff, and it's more of like the esoteric version. How does that show up in your personality, and what does that show up in your characteristics and your motivations? So the short version is the 9-star key is literally the 9 stars of like Polaris, Vega, and the Big Dipper, and how they're arranged in the sky when you're born. So it was like an ancient timekeeping system. They, you know, the sky moves. So they changed, like, oh, it's harvest time, or it's time to plant things. And, you know, then that was what ancient civilization used. But and it was used in the beginning for a diagnostic tool for Chinese medicine. And now it can still be used to uncover all of these personality traits. So the 9 stars represent the 5 elements and then the masculine and feminine versions of them. So we have like water and fire, which are their own thing. And then wood and metal, we see both yin and yang, which is feminine and masculine. And then earth, we see 3 times. So there's yin and yang earth. And then there's also like earth, as in planet earth, the earth that we walk on. And all of those personality types have things that make them appear very similar, but are also like their motivations behind why they do the things they do are completely different. So like you think you understand somebody, but you know, you try to do the things the way that you would think that they would want, and then it just blows up in your face because you don't know what they're thinking, right? So it's like this ultimate tool to be able to kind of not read other people's minds, but like get a better idea of who are you, where are you coming from, what's important to you, like what are the stories that you tell yourself on a daily basis. It's really interesting because it's not mystery school, it's not lineage with King Solomon, but it is lineage in the fact that it's like Chinese medicine and Japanese philosophy and feng shui. So cool. If you're familiar with feng shui at all, there's like they call it the magic square, and there's 9 spots. So it's like those are the same energies that are the 9-star key. And I always like to think of it as like the Brady Bunch, because there's 3 boys and 3 girls. It's a family structure. There's 3 boys, 3 girls, and then mom and dad, and then Alice in the middle, which is what I consider Earth, because she's like part of the family, but not really part of the family. But without her, nothing would be okay. So it's like she's and within the 9-star key, so if you know anything about Chinese medicine, they have what's called a generating cycle and a controlling cycle. And the elements are always shown in a circle because water feeds wood energy, like we water plants. And then wood feeds fire because we burn wood to create a fire. And fire returns to the earth, which, you know, we burn the wood and it becomes ash. And then earth generates metals, which is like the rocks and the minerals and all that good stuff. And then the metal goes into the water supply with, you know, with all the minerals and everything. So it's this beautiful cycle. And it shows us that of those 5 elements, which we all have, by the way, some people are going to feel better than others. If you think of it as like, it's like a pie chart, and you're not, you know, you might have, you know, how do I do this something? But, you know, you have like this much fire and this much water and then this much wood, and you know, we're not all equal. And depending on your constitution, some people are going to feel better than others. So like you and I are both fire people. So if we're around wood people, we light up because wood lights up fire. It's just how it goes. And if we're around water people, we might feel a little bit dampened because water puts out fire. So there's this natural flow of energy, and it just makes so much more sense, especially in the world where like everybody, I feel like a lot more people are making friendships over the internet, especially with the pandemic. And like, you don't get that in person. There's an energetic push and pull that can happen. And, you know, some people you can get along with great via text or whatever, and then you get in person with them and there's this like friction. And with the 9-star key, it helps us to understand that better, because it's not anybody's fault. It's just like, if you're a metal person hanging out with the wood person might feel compromised because metal cuts down wood. And it doesn't all have to be bad. You know, metal can refine wood, and that's a beautiful thing. Like, we have to trim back the rose bush. But if you come at it with a hedge clipper, you know, it's just, so everything has, what's the word I'm looking for? You know what I'm trying to say. But it's like, it's so interesting, and it makes so much sense why like certain humans get along and some others just don't understand each other. And in a perfect world, everybody would get along. Like the elements, we can't live without any of us. But the problem is when we're out of balance, which is where all the lineage healing tools and Kabbalah comes in, because it puts us right into balance. And like, the more that I've been studying this this is my 9th year, that I've really paid attention. Well, maybe the 8th year. The first year I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So like the past 8 years, I've really been studying and paying attention to this work. And the more I watch people and learn about people, when you're like doing the Kabbalah or doing any type of personal work, but specifically with the power of the initiation and everything else, you are constantly actualizing to like the perfect expression of whatever your element is. So it's the coolest thing
That
in
is
the
so,
world.
you just made me want to learn like everything about it. No lie. It's so interesting because it sounds like not just a way to understand yourself, which is always really important. Like, you talk about in the mystery school, like know thyself, like that's so important, right? I mean, you have to, but really to understand, like, okay, like I liked what you said about like metal can also refine wood, because it doesn't have to be that you don't get along with those people, or that you're having friction with those. You don't have to, but it's how do you interact with those people. And you talked about, and it could not be the Myers-Briggs, but I remember doing something with personality a long time ago, and it talks about like some people have like a socializer personality or a director personality or like certain personalities, and it's meant to help you in the workplace more.
Right.
About like, if you're going to the person who's a socializer, you want to be ready for a chat, right? Or maybe they're not the person you want to go to if you need to get something done in like 5 minutes. But then if you're going into the person with the director's personality, like you're not going to want to go in there and chat for long because they like want the facts and they want to be done with it and move along.
Exactly.
And so it's about understanding other people so that when you interact with the world, as we must, because we don't, we are not individual beings living on our own planet. It sounds like this really helps with that as well, and maybe creating and building relationships in different ways. And also for someone who's into healing work, also kind of understanding the way to interact with your clients, which sounds super helpful.
I mean, I can't even tell you the countless conversations that I've had with people, whether it's talking to people about how they work in the workplace, how they relate to their partners is huge, because we don't understand another, if you've got a wood person and a metal person, they're going to appear that they want things a certain way, but they're for completely different reasons. Like, they're usually pretty clean. Both of those people don't like clutter. They like organization. Wood, it's because they like efficiency. Metal is because I said so. Like, there's less rhyme and reason with metal. Things just are the way they are, and you have to follow their rules. Wood, however, has thought it out, and they want to get shit done as fast as possible. So it's like, it looks the same, but it's very different under the surface. And when those people can butt heads, and some people are not suited for like waking up at 5 a.m. and going to CrossFit. Other people, like, they need to sleep in, and some people can, and that's awesome. And like, that's what they need to do, but it gives you a lot more permission to just be who you are. And learning, like, so there's 3 facets to the 9-star key, and one is like the way that you present to the world, and one is I call it your inner child position. We call it the stress position, but it's literally how your inner child freaks out when things are going wrong. And then there's like your challenge and career position. So it's like, what's your true calling, and like, what are your like massive challenges in life? And I've noticed, like, when you're in the process of like Kabbalah or anything, when the BS story that's in your head because of the way that it's laid out. Like, I know, for example, my inner child is yin wood, and yin wood gets extremely indecisive under stress, and they just like, their brain breaks a little bit. They just kind of shatter. They need to move a little bit more. And like, when you know that about yourself and you know what you're dealing with, it makes it easier to be like, to catch it before it spirals out of control. So like, the more that I've learned, the more that I'm realizing it's just another tool. It's another way to figure out who you are and how to overcome all of the things, it's negative ego, really. This is the Chinese medicine, Japanese philosophy version of what's your negative ego trying to tell you, and how do we get to like a more evolved version.
Right. I think it's just so, oh my gosh, I'm just so interested, because I feel like so much of what we do, and I think as, you know, people who are in healing and like light work and things like that, who sort of end up trending towards these types of things, whether it be the modern mystery school or Reiki or other healing like IET or even tapping, things like that, is I think at the heart of it, one of the things about people who do those things, like people like you and I and other people that I think are in our world, our immediate world, is that we want to understand people and we want to understand ourselves. And I think all of the things that we do tends to be born of a desire to understand, like really truly understand ourselves, but then understand because we want to relate to other people, but we want to understand what is also motivating them to a certain extent. And we want to do something to make the interactions in our world, for whatever reason, for whatever it stems from or whatever it comes from, but we want this ability to interact differently with the world and better with the world and the people around us. And this is just such a beautiful, I actually just, you had talked about and I hadn't realized that I had just downloaded the little, you know, 9 Brady Bunch squares of the feng shui, because I was like, oh, my house needs to like get a little bit of this energy, I feel like. But that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, is that something that people can do with you? Or is that something that they learn on their own?
It's, you know, I mean, I can always recommend books. I do have private sessions for that. I actually just taught, I had a webinar last week and the replay will be up that people can check out if they want to. And I'm holding another one on Tuesday night at 7:30. And it's geared towards babies and kids, but it's literally, we're talking about the inner child. Because it's, you know, kids, if you're completely different from your elemental makeup of your kid, you're not going to understand what they need. So it really helps you to like focus in on like, how do you avoid meltdowns? How do you avoid tantrums? Like, what do they need specifically to build their confidence? So I'm teaching a whole thing about that on Tuesday night. But it's literally like, if you want to know your triggers and like what you need in order to heal your inner child, you can tune in because it's amazing.
So how could someone find that?
If you just go to I linked it on my Instagram.
Okay.
If you go to jacquelynnemaloney.com/blueprint, there's a ton of information there. I called it the Elemental Blueprint for years. Yeah, if you go to my bio, there's it's like Linktree, but it's flow code. Everything that you need to know about me is in there. Okay. And the Decoding the Personality group is where all that stuff will live. And that's my little free Facebook community I put together. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's the best thing to like talk about.
It's so amazing. I can't wait to learn so much more about this 9-star key. It sounds so incredible and just so it's just brilliant. I love the idea behind it. It's so cool. I've never heard of it before you talked about it. It's something that's never come up in my world. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm so excited that you shared that. So I want you to share one more thing. So just because I've gotten to try your products firsthand and they are amazing, tell me about, so where did L.U.X Apothecary come from? Like, how did you start this? Where did you get the idea and what is it?
So when I was like in my teens, I was always like trying to make like body butters and stuff. I made my own face oils when I was in my late teens and early 20s. And I like dropped off of that because it's, you know, it's work, right? And I was doing other things. So we use a lot of prayer candles in the mystery school, setting up temples and using sacred geometry. And my baby was, I don't know, 3 months old, maybe 3 months old, maybe younger. And my main altar's in my bedroom. And I had at that time been purchasing candles from the dollar store, which I do not recommend to do. So apparently paraffin wax releases all of these like benzenes and toluenes into the air. And for whatever reason that night, I had the altar in my room. They're in like hurricanes. I'm not going to burn the house down with the baby in it. But he was in my bed and I was in the other room and I came into my bedroom and it smelled like diesel fuel. And I was like, oh my God, I can't use these candles anymore. So I like blew them out and I immediately started Googling like, what's the best wax to use? And I tried beeswax and it's a pain in the neck to work with, as beautiful as it is and as nice as it smells. So I do make beeswax candles occasionally, but I by accident made like the best palm wax pillar candle you can buy. All because I didn't want to burn something that was unsafe for Leonidas. So that's just, why not just go to the store and buy something? No, no, no. I'm going to spend hours of my life trying to figure out how to recreate it. I don't know why I did it.
It's amazing.
But I did. And it took a while, but the end result was fantastic. So it was all about like, how can I create things that are non-toxic and totally safe that I can use on myself and for my baby in my home? And I had been making bath salts for years. I've been giving them to clients for years. And people would always say, like, can I please buy these from you? And I'm like, no, 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 they're just a gift. You know, so when I made the candles, I finally like packaged a bunch of bath salts and made the bath salts. And then that turned into creating body butters and salt scrubs as well. And then I made my lip balm for you guys at Kabbalah, which isn't even on my site yet. It's just, you know, stuff that I can make, that I can feel good about, that I know is safe for Leonidas.
Oh.
You know,
And that body butter, let me tell you, first of all, the lip stuff, I can't wait. It's amazing. I loved it. And when I used the body butter that you had brought to you had brought it to our Kabbalah training for us to try. And I don't remember which one I tried. I think you told me I tried the whipped one. Yeah. And it was like, I've never, ever in my life, and like I have all the products from all the natural places and all the people on Etsy. Like I always buy, it is the nicest texture I've ever put on my body ever. Like literally it was just so, I was like, holy moly, I don't know what she made this with, but it is just incredible.
It's like, nice, right? I'm such a body butter snob, and I was like, oh
so
my God, this is so good.
It's so awesome. It's so awesome. So people can go on, what is the website for your products?
So the website's the same, JacquelynneMaloney.com. There's a link in either the drop down, depends on how you get into it, but the L.U.X Apothecary is right in there. And again, in my bio, the flow code page, all my links are there. Yeah, that body.
So basically follow you on Instagram.
Yeah, if they follow me on Instagram, they'll see it. I'm not as active on Instagram as I should be. I'm working on that. It's so hard with all these things. But yeah, my website's pretty easy. You know, if you know how to spell my name, you can find me online. And of course, reach out, like DM me, whatever. You know, I'm happy to chat.
Yeah. So you have all the amazing things. So friends who are watching now or later, Jacquelynne Maloney, she has, you have a brick and mortar practice, you said, in Hingham.
I do.
So you do your healings there. Do you do life activations as well?
I do. Yeah, everything I do is mystery school. So I, in addition to being, I'm a life activation practitioner. At this time of night, my brain kind of shuts off because I've been running around and talking to a toddler all day. But I have probably 15, maybe 18 different modalities I can do. I am an apprentice guide in the school as well, so I teach Empower Thyself. I can teach sacred geometry and astral travel, all kinds of cool stuff. And now that we're out of pandemic, maybe I can bring some of that back. But yeah, I do all kinds
From
of stuff.
skeptic to total, not even believer, but practitioner, right?
Yeah.
From like absolute skeptic in this world of corporate to building yourself a prison to like totally breaking out of it on faith, like literally packing up your house and moving to Florida, having all the faith to do all of the things, which is just amazing. And listening to those deep gut feelings, which, you know, I've been talking about this idea in the hero's journey of answering the call. And sometimes it's not like a literal thing that happens. Sometimes it's not a moment. Sometimes it's just this inner knowing where you're like, this is for me. Like, this is what I have to be doing right now. And if I don't do it, I'm just not going to feel settled. I'm going to feel wrong until I actually do it. And Landy just said that's how God works. Like, so true, right? It's just this inner knowing that sometimes just like, if I don't learn more about this. And then there's things, we also talked about going down the rabbit hole where you learn all the things and eventually some things kind of fall away, right? Like they're just not your thing. Like
I don't
some
do
of the
any of the
things.
stuff. I don't do anything but mystery school work and Nine Star Key. It was
And
all
then
like my gateway drug, you know?
Yeah, like I did yoga teacher training, love it. Haven't really taught yoga yet. I've done, you know, all the Reiki master stuff. Haven't really used it. And then, but it led to me through actually yoga teacher training and knowing my yoga teacher trainer is kind of how I found Jordan in the mystery school of Ariana in this really roundabout way. And it kind of led to that. And when I heard Jordan speak for the first time, I had this moment. You said he could be speaking Russian, and you'd be like, yes, that makes total sense. And it was this moment of like, oh, wow, everything he's saying And so it's just interesting because I feel like that even though the trajectory has been much slower on my end, you had a similar experience in that eventually you found the thing. You found the place. And then you also found your own super interesting thing, this 9-star key that I'm just going to go try and learn everything about now. And you post videos. I know you've sent me some. Where do you usually post the videos?
So I have a YouTube channel.
Okay.
I have a full YouTube channel. A lot of that stuff is in my group. I will say I am launching my first course in a couple of weeks. So if like the 9-star key stuff resonates with you, anybody watching, please keep your eyes out because it's going to be like a deep dive into everything. And it's like, when I say this can help you in every area of your life, like I'm not even kidding. It's wild.
Virtual? It'll be a virtual course?
Totally virtual. Yeah. It's all going to be.
So everyone everywhere can take it.
Everyone everywhere. And then it will live on my site forever and ever for people to pick up.
So cool.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's been a long time coming, and I'm finally at the point where I feel like, okay, I should probably teach this. I mean, it's something that I've been using day in and day out to plan my life, to plan my months, to, you know, understand, you know, how much small talk to have with a client. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all of that stuff. I've all of my social links are on my website. If you go, my name is unusually spelled, so usually everybody can find everything if they just do a quick Google search. But yeah, YouTube, Facebook, all of that stuff. I'm everywhere.
Landy wants to know if your training will be live. Also, so, like if it's going to be a live training, and then
this will be live. So there will be a bunch of different worksheets that everybody will have access to prior to, and then it's going to be like a 6-week structure. So the first week will be introductory, and then because there's 5 different elements, but then some have 2 versions and some have 3. So some modules might be like longer than others, but yeah, it will definitely be like live call. We can talk about everything and then have time for Q&A because there's always questions. There's always questions. And I feel like people really learn when it comes to the questions as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. I think that I'm definitely going to have to learn all about it because it just sounds exactly like what we all need. Really, I wish everyone knew about this sort of thing. Or I wish that everyone, you know, how amazing would the world be if we were all invested in figuring out how to interact with each other? Just that one thing. Like one thing about like maybe we all need to learn how to be with people as they are and not how we're like deciding they need to be or right? Like, that would be just so logical. Why don't we just do that? I don't know.
We're getting there. We're getting there. We're moving in that direction. Yeah.
Right. And that's why we do this stuff, right? This is why we do this work. That's why we have things like that. We have these lives or we record things and we put them out there because someone somewhere is going to stumble upon it. And it's going to be their call to do something. And they're going to say, oh, what is this modern history school we're talking about? What is this Reiki thing? Maybe I want to do a yoga teacher training. What is this 9-star key? Maybe they're going to come on to your, you know, what you're talking about. And maybe a mom was watching and they hear like you're talking about, you know, ways to understand your children and how do you interact with your children in a better way so that your personality isn't necessarily dictating their personality and resulting in meltdowns, right?
Yes. I will say too, I forgot to talk about this. I have a mom's group too, because why not?
You too.
I do. I have my 9-star key group, which is the decoding the personality. And then also I call it sacred work because like it's the most sacred job on the planet to raise a little god and goddess. Yeah. So I've got that little group. Too.
Sacred work for moms? It's on Facebook, right? Sacred work for mom. I know I'm in it. What is it? Sacred work for mamas?
Sacred work, support for spiritual mamas. Yeah, I'll probably be changing the name soon, but
that's amazing.
Just so that it's more easier to find. But we talk all things like spirituality, intuition, you know, working with your kids, the challenges and triumphs, you know, the wonderful range of emotions that motherhood is.
Yeah, and all through all ages, right? Through all ages. I have a 13-year-old and a 6-year-old, and you know the things that you're talking about, just understanding their personality. It doesn't. You said it is one of the most sacred jobs, and I promise you, at whatever age they are, I don't think it actually gets easier. It just gets different.
No, it gets different. They get more.
It gets different.
Yeah. It just gets different. I don't think it's ever an easy job. It can't.
It just gets different. Maybe they don't need you in certain ways, and then they need you in other ways. So it's definitely So you do all the things. You're just amazing. And I mean, you're literally like this amazing goddess. And I honor you so much because you're just such an amazing human. And thank you. I'm so honored by you having been here. I'm so grateful that you came. I remember like seeing you, in the mystery school and at our trainings and other things. And I'm like, oh my God, she's like all the things I want to do. So you're so amazing, and thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story. Thank you for those who are watching now and for those who will watch later. Please follow Jackie on Instagram, on Facebook. It's Sacred Work. What is it? Tell me again.
Support for Spiritual Mamas. And then
Okay.
also Decoding the Personality, the Hidden Power of the Mind. Yeah.
And then on Instagram is your link of all your other links.
Yes. Yeah. If you click in my Instagram bio, you can find everything. If you go to Facebook, you can find everything.
Awesome.
I made it as easy as possible to track me down. So
yes.
Yeah.
Well, you're wonderful. Thank you for coming on. I know you said the evenings you said around 8 o'clock you start to go into tired mode, so which is completely fair.
Ability starts to wane a little bit, but
well, thank you so much for being on here. I appreciate you so much. I'm honored, and I hope that you had a good time. I had a wonderful time listening to you. And thank you for everyone. Thank you so much for everyone who was on, and I hope you all have a good night. And decide if you're ready to answer the call. So have a good one. Bye.